Good afternoon and welcome to the third BEREC Public Debriefing for 23. This is the debriefing on the outcomes of the third BEREC plenary meeting that took place last week, 5th and 6th of October in Madeira, hosted by our Portuguese colleagues. So, next slide, please. Some logistics of today. The debriefing has two parts, as in most cases. After each part, we will have time for questions from the audience. All participants are welcome to use the live chat box next to the live streaming window during the debriefing to send us questions that we will answer during the Q&A sessions. During the first part, BEREC's co-chairs, BEREC's incoming chair 24 and myself will present the results of the elections of the BEREC Chair 2025 and the new mini-board of 2024, the draft work programme for 2024, and two BEREC reports, which are published for public consultation, the draft BEREC report on Member States' best practices to support the defining of adequate broadband internet access service, and the draft BEREC guidelines detailing quality of service parameters. In the second part, we will have a presentation about the BEREC report on secure 5G networks and some updates from our side. Next slide, please. I will start with the presentation of the results of the BEREC elections. Robert Maurick, chairman of Comreg, Ireland, was elected as BEREC Chair for 2025. Patricia Silva Gonçalves, member of the Board of HAKOM, was elected as Vice Chair for 2024. Laure de la Rodière, Chairwoman of ARCEP, was also elected as Vice Chair for 2024. And finally, a representative of the BEREC participants without voting rights, Kelly Gislason, Managing Director of ECOI, was elected in this position. So this is the structure, the composition of the new BEREC mini-board for 2024, of course, alongside Tonko as Chair of 2024 and myself as outgoing Chair, Vice Chair for next year. So we wish success to all for their mandate next year. Now, I will pass the floor to Tonko for the presentation of the draft work programme 24, which has been published for public consultation.
Thank you, Kostas. So, our work programme for 2024, as you could expect, has the same structure as the programme for 2023, and it is still divided among our three strategic priorities: full connectivity, sustainable and open digital markets, and empowering end users. It is also stemming from other BEREC's tasks, and we discuss our cooperation with other institutions and the stakeholder engagement, and of course we discuss on our future work. The program for 2024 has 46 work items, so we decreased number of work items a little bit, but we merged some ideas into same items. 20 of those items are mandatory. There are 10 carryovers for 2023, and some of those items will also be completed in 2025. And 16 of them are the result of the prioritization exercise, which has been done internally in BEREC. And of course, like every year, we will have additional work items for BEREC Chair and incoming Chair. We will organize our stakeholder forum as usual, and we will work on our work program 2025 and other documents. Next slide, please. So on the first strategic priority, we have 13 work items, and it's really a broad scope of items. So it covers 5G networks, network resilience, satellite communications, digital decade policy program, remedies, and infrastructure. Under second priority, we have 10 work items. Well, most interesting are covering market roles, new NRA powers, sustainability challenges. I mean, when we speak about new NRA powers, we are not all the same on the national level. So sometimes we even discuss matters which some of our members don't have competencies on the national level, and then it's an ongoing discussion how to proceed with this. Under third strategic priority on empowering end users, there are only, let's say, 4 work items, but they cover the broad scope of issues on consumer matters. Like adequate broadband internet access service, quality of service parameters, environmental issues, and especially an opinion on Article 123 of the code, which will be quite a comprehensive PRD for us. And of course, there are other tasks envisaged, and as in this period, we have a lot of initiatives coming from the European Commission. We expect in the next year, as it was in this year, some additional ad hoc items to emerge. Here is how it looks like divided into our work groups. Not all have equal number of PRDs, but they all have a lot of things to do. And this is, sorry, next slide. I forgot about mentioning the next slide. Yes, this is how it looks divided into workload for the plenary. So it is not a surprise that most of the documents will be voted in plenary 3 and plenary 4 next year. Next slide, please. So, well, the main messages on our work program, it is still a heavy workload for BEREC. We try to stay focused on the most important topics, and we try to maintain high quality of deliverables. There will be some workshops organized instead of reports. We believe that with external workshops, we have earlier engagement and interaction of stakeholders. And also we had to postpone some of items we would like to do for 2025 to keep the quality of the things we do. And of course, our midterm strategy will expire in 2025. So in 2024, we will start our work on the new midterm strategy, which will this time also include our strategy on cooperation with other institutions and also a strategy on international cooperation. And of course, we will address these new competencies, which is a challenge for the regulators and for BEREC. Next slide, please. So what comes next, like Kostas already said, the public consultation is open until 3rd of November this year, and final adoption of the work program 2024 we expect on plenary 4 on 7th December this year. So that was all from my side, and now I would like to pass the floor to our end users, co-chairs Marina and Indre.
Hello everyone. Today we, on behalf of End Users Working Group, we are going to present two documents that are published for public consultation. The first one is draft BEREC report on member states' best practices to support the defining of adequate broadband internet access service. Next slide, please. Background is established in Electronic Communication Code, Article 84, which empowers BEREC to establish and to provide such survey and such report. It is not the first time this report is being prepared and drafted. The first report was published in the year 2020, but given that it was basically before the transposition of Electronic Communication Code, it provided data only on 9 countries and their experience related to basic broadband that was included in the scope of universal service. Now the situation is slightly different because we have the majority of countries that have already transposed Electronic Communication Code, including changing the scope of universal service, including adequate broadband in its scope. Next slide, please. The content of a draft is as follows. We have those basically a few parts that are similar to previous one, to previous report, with policy principle, with relevant experience that BEREC can focus on. It covers not only the work from BEREC, from European Commission in this regard, but we also took a chance and analyzed the structure of universal service, or the opinion or the view on broadband in other parts of the world. For instance, in Americas, what is the activities towards this thing in ITU, in World Bank, and other authorities that put interest in this. The questionnaire and the observation of the relevant experience in member states is covered in the part 3. It's state of play of definition of adequate broadband. It is divided in a few blocks, and each block is analyzed individually according to some parameters and criteria that we found it relevant and interesting to analyze. There is a small part for challenges that member states indicated which they face while implementing adequate broadband, and a few and a piece of conclusions that also is in this report. Next slide. Now we are going to present a few maybe main findings or a few statistics that is interesting in the scope of this report. Of course, in the report you might find a lot more interesting data, charts and maps related to the adequate broadband, but these are, from our point of view, the main. So probably the most significant positive effect of Electronic Communication Code in regards of adequate broadband, that we have 18 countries, member states, which have already defined adequate broadband in their countries. 11 of them are not or not yet, meaning that they are still in the process of defining the adequate broadband. So our report, we think, might be very beneficial to them. What concerns the minimum requirements or general requirements that are adopted in each country, we see that the majority of member states which have already defined adequate broadband stick to minimum download or upload data speed. And we have a situation that the majority of countries find the adequate broadband as the internet access service, which can access at least 10 megabits per second downlink and 1 megabit per second uplink data speed. What we can see that a few countries are stepping forward and they are introducing or have already introduced the higher requirement for minimum data speed that basically sticking to 30 megabits per second if we are considering download speed. Next slide, please. When we are talking about the obligations, the situation is different among the countries. We have 9 countries so far which established obligations related to universal service, including adequate broadband services in its scope. And what it is also important to mention that not all the countries choose the designation of universal service providers within all the territory. There are countries which indicate only part of their territories, which these obligations should be implemented, meaning that all the countries choose obligations wisely. Next slide, please. What challenges and conclusions can be observed from this report? Basically, all the countries agree that this tool, adequate broadband and in general universal service, is really useful for digital inclusion and should be kept and maintained as a tool for in electronic communication services. Of course, as mentioned before, we see positive impact of electronic communication code, given that more and more countries introduce and have adequate broadband in their framework. COVID pandemic showed that Annex 5 can be considered in their extension related whether it is enough for the digital inclusion or avoid digital divide in order for us to get access to the basic services and what basic services are really are. For instance, there were some issues raised whether teleworking or health issues should be in the services provided in Annex 5 of the code. But we have to bear in mind that the report is not intended to provide any recommendations in this regards. This is just small insight what could be discussed further. And next slide, please. As Kostas already mentioned, public consultation has already started. It is open until 10th of November, and for the convenience for the stakeholders, we provided a few questions to guide stakeholders what we are really seeking and what input we really seek from them. So these are aspects concerning which criteria, which aspects could be taken on board while evaluating when defining the adequate broadband, which requirements or criteria should be set for the minimum requirements of adequate broadband. We should also be very grateful if you could provide your views of the benefiting end users, what you think it is relevant criteria for them, and of course, as the electronic communication code and transposed legislation in national laws are considering affordability and availability measures, the point of view of stakeholders would be also valuable in this regard. Of course, if you have any insights that are relevant from market point of view, we would be really grateful to receive such comments as well. Thank you, and I give the floor to my dear colleague Marina to present a document of our working group.
Thank you, Indra. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here on behalf of End User Working Group to present draft BEREC guidelines detailing quality of service parameters. So next slide, please. So legal basis for this document are Article 104 of Electronic Communication Code, which stands that national regulatory authority may require operators of internet access services and interpersonal communication services to publish information about quality of their services. Of course, basis is also Article 4 of BEREC regulation, which stands that BEREC issues guidelines regarding relevant quality of service parameters, including for users with disabilities, content and format of that publication, and certification mechanisms. First guidelines we had in 2020, and after 2 years, it is time to revision. Next slide, please. So what is the basic information about this revision? This revision is based on the expertise and experiences from the member states. So we received the answers from the NRAs. And basically, structure of this document remains the same as the previous one. So we have relevant chapters about the points which I mentioned in the previous slide. What is important for the stakeholders is that the focus is always of the revision of the tables. So table 1, table 1A and table 2, which we will see in the document, contain the parameters for the internet access services and interpersonal communication services, and contains the measurement methods and definitions which are applicable. Next slide, please. So what is new in this document and in these tables, which I mentioned? We updated the references to standards and related documents. So especially regarding internet access services, we took into account our other BEREC work, especially for definition and measurements methods for latency, for delay variation and packet loss ratio. We included guidelines on the implementation of open internet regulation, net neutrality regulatory assessment methodology, and guidelines on very high capacity networks. What is important in this document and what is new is that we have additional parameter which is not listed in Electronic Communication Code Annex 10. It is data transmission speed. You will find it in the tables. So it has its own definition and measurement methods. Next slide, please. So what Indra already said, for this document also, we launched a public consultation, which started at Monday, and it lasts until November 10. So in order to make things easier for the stakeholders and for us, and to gather as much valuable comments that we can, we prepared 4 questions for the stakeholders. Do the existing guidelines assist stakeholders? Are there any challenges into implementing? Which points could be more detailed or clarified? Which parameters mostly assist end users? And of course, at the end, do you have any other relevant comments? Of course, we encourage you to contribute, to give your inputs, and we thank you in advance for every valuable contribution to our document in order to have the best possible document that we can. We expect that the final approval of these guidelines will be next year in March. So thank you for your attention, and I give floor back to Mr. Kostas for questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Indre. Thank you, Marina, for the presentations on the 2 items of end users working group that are published for consultation. And now let's open the discussion, the Q&A part of the first part of today's debriefing. Let me check if we have questions in the chat. Yeah, I have one comment from Luke Hendricks from ECTA. Congratulations to Robert, Patricia, and Laure. We are looking forward to a fruitful collaboration with them, Tonko and Kostas, to realize the 4 objectives of the European Electronic Communications Code, with competition as the main driver for investment, innovation, and European Union welfare, and achieving the 2030 targets. And we fully agree that safeguarding competition remains a priority for us. I don't see any other questions or comments in the chat, so any questions from the room? If there are no questions at this point, I propose that we move to the second part, and then we have the second Q&A session to maybe further discuss. So we move to the second part of the debriefing, and I would like to give... Okay, now we have maybe... Okay, I'm trying to see who asks. Yves Blondel, okay. I cannot see the organization, but anyhow, the question is, as regards the draft BEREC guidelines detailing quality of service parameters, may I request a version with revision marks compared to the existing guidelines? Thank you in advance. I think, yeah, Indre, Marina, would you like to comment on this?
Thank you for your question. Unfortunately, we don't have a track changes document. We had so many track changes and documents, so we don't have the last version that you want. That's why I emphasizes the most important changes. So you should be focused on the tables regarding quality of service parameters for interpersonal communication services, and especially internet access services. So focus on the table 1, table 1A, and table 2. So I already mentioned that we have a new measurement methods and definition for internet access services, and also we have a new parameter, data transmission speed. So that is the most important thing in this document. So my advice is to focus on this, and other regarding guidelines for publication of information and certification mechanisms. Basically, informations and guidelines stays the same as the previous one, so you will not find much changes. So just focus on the tables and focus on these questions that we raised for the stakeholders, and I think it will be fine.
Thank you, Marina. Any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat. So I will proceed with the second part of the debriefing. I will give the floor to Katja and Zdravko, co-chairs of the BEREC Cybersecurity Working Group, who will present the BEREC report on secure 5G networks.
Hello. Thank you, Kostas. Thank you for giving us the floor. I hope everything works well. My name is Katja Medvrčko, and together with my colleague from Croatia, Zdravko, I'm a co-chair of the Cybersecurity Working Group. I will start the presentation of the report with some background information. So if we go to the first slide. The data for this BEREC report was collected through a survey, which focused actually on two main topics. The first topic is 5G security, as it is also presented in this report. The second report is more focusing on resilience of the electronic communication networks and will be presented in the second report issued hopefully at the end of this year, as planned. The survey consisted of two sets of questions. One was for operators operating networks in BEREC member countries, and other one for regulators. Both questionnaires are included in the annex of the report. BEREC gathered inputs for the questionnaire as well from ENISA and the European Commission. If you go to the next slide. So the information collection period was from April and to May, and about 30 NRAs sent their inputs. NRAs, so regulators collected all together 124 answers from all different operators, and they all anonymized the answers. List of participating countries is for both questionnaires is also included in the report. If we go to the next slide. So in this BEREC report on secure networks, as mentioned, that the questions about technological challenges and the equipment replacement are included, and then dependencies on other infrastructures like energy, satellites, subsea cables, that will be included in the resilience report that is planned to be adopted in the plenary floor. If you go to the next slide. Oh, here's just an example of the visual. So each answer of the questions are presented with some graphs and exploratory text. Here, I would like to give the floor to Zdravko to present the main findings of the report, and as well some open issues or our challenges to dig into further. Zdravko.
Yes, thanks a lot, Katja, and thanks, Chairman. So can I have the next slide, please? Okay, I'm going to present you the main findings of our report. So what you can find in our report is the current state of the 5G rollout, especially when it comes to standalone solution and slicing technology. We have identified highest security risks. Also, we have identified equipment lifetime expectations by the operators, their opinions on the current standards and guidances, current situation with cloud-based solutions in the European networks. Then also you can see a bit about multi-vendor usage, and also the situation related to the equipment replacement and the cost for such replacement. Next slide, please. So what we expect to do in the future and what we have put in our PRDs for the next year is to look a little bit more into multi-vendor strategy in the EU markets, interoperability tests, how to promote them, then cloud-based 5G core and virtualized network risks. Also, one of the questions is how to address the slow 5G standalone deployment in the European market. Also, very important, a very interesting question is this question of the equipment replacement costs. If there should be such requests from the national authorities. And I think next slide is just also next steps that we put in our PRDs for the next year. And also, as Katja already mentioned, the questions of the survey that relate to the resilience and dependencies on other infrastructures will be analyzed and presented in our second report. So our drafters are currently working on these questions. Next slide, please. I think that was all. I think there was one more saying thank you, so I should say thank you very much.
Thank you, Katja. Thank you, Zdravko. So before moving to the second Q&A session, I would like to give you some further updates from our side. First, I would like to inform you about other BEREC documents that were approved last week in BEREC Plenary 3. 5 reports have been approved for publication and are already published in our website. The BEREC report on the implementation of the Open Internet Regulation, the BEREC guidelines on very high capacity networks, the BEREC report on sustainability indicators for electronic communications networks and services, and the fourth intra-EU communications benchmark report, and the report about the recent workshop on the evolution of the competition dynamics of tower and access infrastructure companies. Furthermore, I would like to inform you about the BEREC's work on reaching an agreement between the European Union and Moldovan operators about the upper retail roaming price caps for data and calls. The joint statement that was signed in Q2 2023 between some European Union operators and Moldovan operators foresees that BEREC will act as a trustee with the support of the Moldovan NRA for the implementation of this declaration. So during summer, the roaming co-chairs worked together with the signatories to define a glide path for retail roaming data services and retail roaming calls that would be accepted by all signatories. On the 22nd of September, operators agreed on the glide path calculated by BEREC on the basis of the data provided by them. The retail price cap for data roaming services will not exceed 15 euros per gigabyte during 24, while the retail cap for 24 is 0.33 euros per minute for calls made and 0.25 euros per minute for calls received. Further decreases are agreed and foreseen for 25. Next slide, please. In addition, I would like to inform you about the 4 lateral summits that took place last week, back-to-back with the BEREC plenary meeting in Madeira. The summit is a biannual event, so every 2 years. The previous one was in 21. That gives the opportunity to BEREC, IPEREG, IMERG, and Regulatel to meet, discuss topics of common interest, and strengthen their collaboration and commitment for cooperation. This year, the main topic of the summit was quite timely, the topic of international connectivity. So during the summit, we focused on the role of satellites, including low Earth orbit satellites and submarine cables in achieving connectivity. We expressed our commitment to increasing global connectivity through the use of these technologies, with the ultimate goal of creating a digital future that is sustainable and accessible for all end users. From BEREC side, NCEC, the Ukrainian NRA, delivered a presentation emphasizing the critical role of electronic communications and connectivity in emergency situations such as Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I would also like to inform you about another interesting BEREC workshop planned for the 26th of October. This workshop will cover the topic of perspectives as well as the regulatory and competition challenges of Internet of Things. It will be a virtual workshop and we will soon announce more details how to follow it. And so with this, I would like now to open the floor for the second Q&A part. Let's see if we have questions in the chat. I don't see. Yes, please.
Is it good? Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much. I was just curious to hear that you will have this IoT workshop on 26 October. In view of the fact that there's also a process ongoing now within the Commission looking into IoT, and I wonder if there's any collaboration between the two tracks.
Well, obviously, this is a very interesting topic. I mean, it's, of course, the trend towards Internet of Things applications is very, very important. We want to explore the regulatory challenges, the competition challenges, the trends. It was identified as an important part of our work program this year. Work will continue. We will have a representative from the Commission in the workshop, and there were we remember that there is also interest from the Commission side already. They have some work on the competition in IoT. So yeah, we look forward to collaborate on this.
I also have a question, Inês Nolasco from Vodafone. So I've had a quick look yesterday. The document was published on the website already on the Inter-EU Communications BEREC benchmark report. And there's one point which is not addressed, which is the competition or the evaluation of competition between number-based and number-independent services or app-based. And in the introduction of the report, there's a specific reference that BEREC is tasked with assessing the competitive developments in inter-EU communications market. So I was wondering, and the focus is really on pricing and pricing changes, but wouldn't this element also be relevant for a consideration of the competitive developments?
Well, we see the trend that these kind of services are kind of substitution to the standard voice services, and but it's not part of our job for this report. So this is the reason why it's not covered there.
Okay, now I have the answer. Always on this, just follow up to Inesh's question. At this point, we can always consider that the previous report that was drafted and approved by BEREC, which also touched this issue and gave a confirmation of the nature of kind of substitution between the two services, has been confirmed still. So we can deem this.
This is already identified in our opinion published in March this
Super.
year.
Yeah, that was my reference too. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So it's
Yeah.
confirmed still. Yes, thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions, maybe we can move and close the debriefing for today. Maybe the next slide in my presentation, just to remind you the deadlines for the 3 consultations. We have the public consultation for the draft BEREC Work Programme 24, as Tonko said, the 3rd of November. We have the public consultations of the draft BEREC report on member states' best practices to support the defining of adequate broadband internet access service and the draft BEREC guidelines detailing quality of service parameters. The deadline, the 10th, is the 10th of November. Next slide, please. Before saying goodbye for today, let me remind you that the next BEREC public debriefing will be in December. The week just after, of course, the 4th BEREC plenary. I can't remember. It's the week starting on Monday, the 8th, 11th of December. We'll follow up with the specific date. And also, please save the date for the next BEREC Stakeholder Forum, planned for the 26th of March 24 in Brussels. And with this, we close today's debriefing. Thank you and see you soon.